There is probably no better time than this week to use your triple captainship, and Marcus Rashford is your man for that. Hello everyone, my name is Akshay and welcome back to a brand new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to go through the best players to buy for the upcoming double game week 22. Just a reminder that these players are based on the highest predicted points from Fantasy Football Hub. But of course, I'll give you my opinions on whether I agree or disagree with the suggestions by Fantasy Football Hub. Quickly before we get into the video, your support on the videos has been amazing and I really do appreciate it. We've hit 250 subscribers already. So if you do enjoy the video, please do leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it and it helps me out massively. But anyway, let's get into the video. So to begin with is the goalkeepers, and there's no surprise that David De Gea has the highest expected points for the goalies this week. This week is probably going to be very Man United driven because of their double game week. So they've got Crystal Palace and Leeds in the double game week, and a big thing to remember is both of these games are at home at Old Trafford for United. So they have a massive advantage for this double game week. You'll also see on screen for game week 25, I put Man United as black because they are winning 3-0 in the first leg of the Carabao Cup, and it will take a miracle for them to go out. So of course, if they go through, then they'll have a blank in game week 25. But yeah, anyway, in his last 5 games, David De Gea has kept 3 clean sheets, which is decent, only conceding 5 goals, and his expected points for this week are 8.1, and in the next 5, 22.8, which is decent, but all the focus is on this week for him. If for some reason your team doesn't have a good goalie, or your keepers that you have at the moment have some difficult fixtures coming up, then he will be definitely a good one to put in, because away from the double game week, United have some nice fixtures coming up as well. But if you do go for De Gea, it would kind of have to be a quick turnaround play, or you would need a good backup keeper, because they will blank in 25 if they do get to the final, and then I believe they do blank in 28 and 32 again, but then they can have some double game weeks coming up in between those games, so it's all a bit complicated. And then moving along the list, we have Meslier, who is in second place. Of course, Leeds have an upcoming double game week as well against Nottingham Forest and Man United, so he could be a good punt to put in, because after the game week 23, where they play Man United again, they go to Everton and Southampton, who are bottom and second bottom of the league, so they have some nice fixtures also coming up away from Man United. And then we have Pope, Ramsdale, Sanchez and Alisson. Pope, there's not really much to say about Newcastle. They're literally keeping clean sheets for fun. That is 6 on the bounce in the league now, and I believe most of us have Pope in our teams anyway, so yeah. Next up is Ramsdale, and Arsenal have an absolutely incredible run of fixtures coming up. So they've got Everton, and then they've got a double game week against Brighton and Man City. Of course, Man City is extremely difficult, but then after that, Villa, Leicester, Bournemouth, and it gets even better. They've overcome a really tough run of fixtures in the last few games, and they've proved themselves. It doesn't look like they're slowing down anytime soon, so Ramsdale is a brilliant option, especially for 4.9 mil as well. So if you want to triple up on Arsenal, then he's a very, very good option, because he's also a great shot stopper. So he could maybe sneak in the bonus points. Now moving on to the defenders, and once again, there is a Man United asset there, and it is Luke Shaw. He's expected to have 9 points in the upcoming double game week, and in the next 5, 23.9, which I believe is 3rd highest ranked, which is very, very good as well. If you don't have him and you do want a Man United defender, then I would go for him, because he's also a bonus points magnet. He's kept the most bonus points out of any of the United defenders since the restart, and of course has the highest attacking threat by miles out of any of the Man United defenders, so could sneak in a cheeky assist or goal. But then moving down the list, it is very Man United dominated this week. Varane and Martinez are next. Expected points of 7.8 and 7.6. They're both pretty much Man United starting centre-back, so you can't go wrong with them either. And then moving down to Trippier, once again, Newcastle keeping clean sheets for fun, 6 on the bounce. And by the way, his underlying stats are absolutely incredible. He's the 2nd highest for expected assists out of any single player, including midfielders and attackers, in the league since the restart. Moving on to Saliba and Zinchenko. They are both ranked 1st and 2nd over the next 5 games because of Arsenal's amazing run coming up. So Saliba's expected points is 25.2 and Zinchenko's 25 for the next 5 games. I personally would go with Zinchenko just because of their attacking threat. And you see most of the time him actually playing in kind of a centre mid role. And he's very, very involved in the actual games and the build up for Arsenal. So he could also be a very strong option as well, and he's cheaper than Saliba as well, because obviously he hasn't been playing all the time for Arsenal. So in my opinion, over the next coming weeks, I would definitely look to be tripling up on Arsenal, so either Nketiah, one of the midfielders, and then a defender. And now moving on to the midfield, Marcus Rashford. In my opinion, Rashford is pretty much a Haaland level, maybe not a Haaland level, that might be exaggerating, but just below a Haaland level player, like an absolute must-have in your team. And if you don't have him in your team, I don't know what the hell you're doing. He scored 5 goals in his last 5 games, arguably the most informed player in the Premier League at the moment, and he has a huge expected points of 14.6 this week. If you haven't used your triple captain, you have got to use it this week. I don't think there's any better week to use it than this week. Because of Rashford's form firstly, and also because both of their double game week games are at home. And with United winning 3-0 at the moment in the Carabao semi-final, I highly doubt Rashford will start the game, which is even better for Rashford owners. So he probably is going to get a decent amount of rest before before the upcoming double game week. So yeah, amazing option. And if you have your triple captain, use it. And if you don't, then he's my captain option for this week, 100%. Next up is Bruno Fernandes, who I personally will be transferring in this week. I've wanted him for so long, and I'm kicking myself every bloody day because I didn't put him in, and he's pretty much returned every single week since I have wanted to have him in my team. His expected points are 12.8, and he's also ranked second in the highest expected points for the next 5 games out of any single midfielder. And then Rodrigo, who has been really disappointing, unfortunately, for Rodrigo owners like myself. I did transfer him in a couple weeks ago because Leeds had some good fixtures coming up, and they still have some alright fixtures coming up away from the 2 Man United games. Of course, the other double game week game is against Nottingham Forest. And then after that, there's Everton and Southampton, which is bottom and second bottom of the league. But moving down the list, there's another 2 Man United assets, Antony and strangely Casemiro. Antony, I just haven't been impressed with him at all this season. I think he's been terrible. Of course, you have to adapt when you come to the Premier League, blah, blah, blah. But for 100 million, you're going to be criticised even more, and you're going to be looked at even more. So away from obviously the 100 million price tag, he hasn't really done enough for me to warrant a place in my team at all. And then Casemiro, who definitely does have a goal in him. He scored 2 goals as well in the FA Cup just a couple days ago. So he does get himself into really good positions. I have actually noticed that when I've been watching Man United. He's in the box quite a lot, or in and around the box for their attacks. I would never recommend putting a CDM in your team. And then finally is Martin Odegaard, who I also will be transferring in this week. I'm going to be making 2 changes most likely. We're taking Saka and De Bruyne out and putting in Bruno and Odegaard. I don't want to make the same mistake as I did with Bruno by not putting him in. And Arsenal's fixtures are just too favourable at the moment. And also with Odegaard, I know he's been increasing in price, but it does let you free up a lot of money if you do have Saka in your team like I do. So definitely one of the best options you can pick for the midfielders. And then moving on to the forwards, it's not really a strange sight to see Haaland as the must-have forward here. He scored 7 goals in his last 5 games, scored a hat-trick in his last game. He has an expected points of 7.2 this week. And also thing to note, of course, Man City have an upcoming double game week in Game Week 23 against Aston Villa and Arsenal. So there's some decent games coming up for Haaland and the City boys. But now moving down the list, and we have Gnonto. I've watched so many videos on how to say his name. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I think it is Gnonto. So anyway, he is second on the list. He's been so impressive for Leeds since the restart. Honestly, he's so exciting to watch. If you do want a differential or want to take a punt on someone, he could be good. Over his next 5 games, I would say his expected points aren't the highest because he goes to Man United twice and then Chelsea. But other than that, he has some, Leeds have some really good games coming up. And for a 5 million price point, it could free up a lot of funds in your team, especially if you just want a bench player or something and you have funds to use. He is definitely a great option for that. Then moving down the list, next up is Eddie Nketiah. Your defense is in trouble and Nketiah's in their room. I've backed my boy for so long, man. And I'm so happy like he scored 2 goals against Man United. You have to have an Arsenal midfielder or attacker in your team for the upcoming run because them fixtures just look too juicy for my liking. And Eddie's ranked second out of any of the forwards for highest predicted points over the next 5 games, just below Haaland on 35.4. And for 6.7 mil, incredibly good value for money. So in my opinion, he's a must-have in your team. And now moving down the list to Darwin now, who has Liverpool have Wolves and Everton coming up. And Darwin should be pretty much fully fit, ready to go now. It's very scary putting Liverpool assets at the moment, but them 2 fixtures are decent. And then Liverpool may also have an upcoming double game week in 25 and 26, which may be a really good time to stack up on Liverpool assets. As not a lot of people have Liverpool players in their team at the moment just because of Liverpool's really poor form. But the one thing we all know with Darwin, his underlying stats are crazy. And it is a bit scary not owning him sometimes because of how many chances he gets a game. And then moving on to Tony and Harry Kane. I'm not going to talk too much about Tony because a lot of people do have him and know the situation with Tony. Brentford have some decent fixtures coming up, but then they do blank in Game Week 25 if Man United make the final, which is pretty much 99% certain. So I wouldn't be looking to go to Tony. But Harry Kane, I think, is another must-have in your team. He's now 1 goal away from breaking the all-time Spurs goal-scoring record. He's equal with Jimmy Greaves. I know they have Man City coming up, but we all know he's a big game player, so I wouldn't really worry too much about playing Man City. Tottenham are home, so it may give them a little bit more of a boost. But then Tottenham have some really decent fixtures coming up also. Leicester, West Ham. they're playing at home, and Wolves. So yeah, in my opinion, the 3 must-have forwards would be Haaland, Nketiah, and Kane. But I would love to know your thoughts on who you guys are transferring in and transferring out this week, so make sure you do leave a comment. But guys, that is pretty much it for this video. If you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like and also subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow for another FPL video.